guys, welcome to the Faves of Our Lives. Before we get started, we just want to say thank you for being a friend. I'm Kelly, and your other host is Brittany.
Hey guys.
Our guest today is our friend who also happens to be named Brittany.
Hi.
So, whether you're a Rose, a Blanche, a Dorothy, or even a Sophia, sit back, eat your cheesecake, and enjoy our take on everyone's favorite, the Golden Girls.
All right, guys. So, The Golden Girls premiered September 12th, 1985. It was on the air for 7 seasons between 1985 and 1992. The cast was Bea Arthur as Dorothy Zbornak, Rue McClanahan as Blanche Devereaux, Betty White as Rose Nyland, and Estelle Getty as Sophia Petrillo. And the general plot of the show is 4 women of advanced age live together in Miami and form a strong friendship. There's Dorothy the snarky one, Blanche the slutty one, Rose the ditzy one, and Dorothy's mother Sophia the mean one, but it's okay because she had a stroke. Throughout the series, they share all of their life experiences with each other and promise to always take care of each other. The show ended May 9th, 1992, with Dorothy getting married and moving and leaving the other 3 to stay together in Miami. So, the first episode that we're going to talk about was titled The Flu Attack, and it's from Season 1, Episode 21. And in this episode, the girls are all planning to attend a benefit/awards banquet when Rose gets everyone but Sophia sick with the flu. It turns out, having 3 sick senior women cooped up together isn't the best of situations. They all argue the entire time. When they find out that there's a strong possibility that one of them won the biggest award of the banquet, they all start arguing over who won and decide they're going, sick or not. Turns out, Sophia won, and she gives a speech that makes the others realize how important their friendship is. And I know that we all really enjoyed this episode, but Kelly, can you tell me some of your favorite parts of this episode?
So, the flu episode had a lot of funny lines in it. One of my favorite things was when they were all sick on the couch, and they're basically commiserating in their misery, and Rose suggests that they could play games or cards or do something else, and I'm not sure who says it. I think it's Blanche. She says, "We're sick. Do we also have to participate in a Girl Scout jamboree?"
Yeah, that was Blanche.
I thought that was really funny. And then I think it was Dorothy that said this. She was like, "Rose, we've had it up to here with your cheerful disposition."
I love Rose in this episode.
I do too.
I wish we could all be Rose when we're sick.
I'm definitely Dorothy when I'm sick.
Oh, yeah.
All you have to do is drink a lot of whiskey.
That's true. I wonder if rum would work just as well. Brittany, what were your favorite parts?
I have to say, probably the iconic line from Sophia when Blanche says she treats her body like a temple, and Sophia says, "Yeah, open to everyone, day or night." Yeah. That's like one of the most iconic lines from Sophia ever, and I love it.
Yeah, I actually think when they run reruns on Hallmark, that's one of the clips that they actually play. That would get someone to watch the show. Yeah, there were a lot of things that I loved about this episode. First of all, when Rose says that she has an ache, they are way too quick to offer her every type of medication in the book. And that is very real. My grandma, she has 3 sisters, and that is so true to life. They seriously do that. And then my absolute favorite part of this was when Dorothy is laying on the couch and she has Blanche's heating pad, and Blanche comes in and asks, "Have you seen my heating pad?" And she says, "No." And Blanche says something along the lines of, "Well, I'd like to know what other electrical appliance you're using under that blanket."
Yeah, I actually looked it up because of that. I was curious. plug-in vibrators are still a thing. And that blew my mind because, like, we have batteries.
Well,
But-
also, that seems highly dangerous.
Right? I wouldn't want to use that.
Yeah.
Like, let's just connect myself to an outlet. That's a good idea.
Right. I have a foot bath that I won't even put my feet into because I'm convinced that I'm going to get electrocuted.
Yeah, that's a pretty sensitive area.
Yeah. I also want to point out that everybody but Sophia gets sick, and I feel like Sophia got her flu shot.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, they did not get their flu shots.
Mm-hmm.
She probably got the extra strength one for old people.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Also, can we talk about the doctor that showed up at their house? This is in 1986. I did not know that doctors still made house calls in the 80s.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I don't know. I feel like if it was a small town, maybe, but they're in the middle of Miami.
Right, they're in Miami, like...
I don't know.
They still do that now, but only, like, wealthy people.
Do they really?
They have, like, concierge healthcare or something.
Wow. Fancy.
Well, a common theme throughout the series was one of them was going to have to move out or something because they didn't have money to pay the rent, so we know they weren't wealthy.
I don't even know if that's true. There's a show based on it, so I'm assuming it's true.
It's fake news.
It could be.
So basically the doctor comes and she tells them, sorry girls, you have the flu. They decide they can't go to this banquet because they're too sick. Dorothy makes the comment she can't even stand for Sophia to hem her dress. So they're obviously too sick to go until Sophia tells them, well, so-and-so called and she was asking if you guys were coming, which leads me to believe that one of you has won this award. And then they go through this whole conversation of Rose doing the, oh, Blanche, it's probably you. You've done so much good stuff this year to help the needy. And Blanche is like, oh, no, Rose, you're the best person I know. You probably won the award. And Dorothy's sitting there like, does nobody care about all of the good things I did? And Rose was like, Dorothy, you did good things this year?
Oh, I think that was right after... Was that right after the orange juice moment?
It was, yeah, I think that you're right. Well, and also Dorothy makes the comment in this episode that being mean to Rose makes her feel better, so she kind of deserved that.
I love what Blanche did for her charity work. She was like a dummy for the firefighters to practice CPR on.
Oh my god, I missed that part. That classic Blanche.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the orange juice moment, Rose walks in and asks if there's any orange juice, and Dorothy pours it all in her cup and says, we're all out.
Oh, I love it.
And then right after that, Kelly, was your favorite part with the Vicks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Rose says, I used your Vicks. I did it out of spite. My chest was already coated.
I love when Rose gets snarky. Like, those are the best moments because he's usually so sweet and innocent.
Me too.
Yeah. Or she's just too stupid to understand that they're making fun of her.
Yeah.
Right. So, basically, they all decide to go to the banquet. They're at the banquet. This entire opening scene when they're at the banquet just disgusts me. Rose is sneezing, her cute little sneezes everywhere. Dorothy blows snot, like, all over the table. And discussed all of their dates, which, rightfully so, that was really, really gross. Blanche shows up with a waiter who she's paid $20 to pretend to be her date. And Sophia comes in with, and I do not know how old this guy is, but he seriously has to be at least half of her age.
Yeah.
And she says, I can't remember what he did. He was a florist or something. She wanted to treat herself after winning big at the dog race, and his shop was right next to the dog track. But she gets him to come with her, and she rubs it in everybody's face, because it ends up that Sophia has won the award. So she goes up and she gives this really cute speech about how she owes it all to her girls and her friends, and how friendship is really the most meaningful thing in life, and it makes the other girls realize, oh, well, we've kind of been being bitches to each other. I'm sorry, I love you, and then she tells everybody. Also, all of the people over 70 in this room, look at your dates. Now look at mine. He's half my age.
And he can only say, like, one phrase in English.
Yeah, I can't remember what the phrase was.
It was something like, I'm so happy to be here, or something like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, overall, this episode, I think that the reason this episode was voted one of the favorites is because there are so many one-liners and back and forths. I think that some of my favorite Golden Girls episodes are the ones where at least two of them are fighting with one another. So the next episode we're going to talk about is called The End of the Curse, Season 2, Episode 1. So this episode starts out with Dorothy, Rose, and Sophia caring for minks that they're breeding for fur. Blanche comes in hysterical because she thinks she's pregnant. After going to the doctor, she finds out that she's actually going through menopause. This is extremely difficult for a woman who believes her only positive attribute is her sex appeal. She struggles with this until she meets a hunky veterinarian that explains to her that animals lose sex drive with age, but that isn't always the case with humans. Also, the minks are gay. So, Brittany, what were your favorite parts of this episode?
I actually like how this episode kind of gets real. Like, that's a lot of Golden Girls episodes do that. Like, the show in general is very humorous, but it deals with a lot of issues that older women face. Mm-hmm. And so I liked that, like, we're kind of like, oh, it's funny that, a little bit funny that Blanche is freaking out about this because, you know, she's the slut, and so she's, like, just her world is ending because of this. But, like, that's a thing women really go through, and, like, I don't know for sure, but I'm fairly sure that the hormonal changes that go on with menopause probably are linked to some depression symptoms, and so, like, she's really feeling that way. And, like, the moment where she's in the psychiatrist's office and she's like, I just never want to get out of bed again, and, like, they play the music and stuff, I'm like, man, that just got real. Mm-hmm. And I like how they do that. They deal with these issues in, like, a really good way.
Yeah. I'm the same way, because one of my favorite things about Blanche is how dramatic she is. Yeah. So the episode starts, and, you know, she walks in, she's hysterical because she thinks she's pregnant, and then she's hysterical because she's going through the change. And, I mean, it's what you love about her, and you expect her to be dramatic about it, but then as you're listening to her talk to the therapist, you're like, oh, okay. Well, this isn't like typical Blanche freaking out over nothing. This is a real thing for her. So I agree.
Oh, I also have it in my notes that those minks were definitely ferrets.
Oh,
I was looking at, I was like, I want to see the minks, and I peek in the cage when they were, like, Dorothy kind of stepped back, and I'm like, those are ferrets.
Kelly, what was your favorite part of this episode?
I have a lot of favorite parts in this episode. So one of them was one of the moments when Blanche runs and hides in her room, and Dorothy and Rose follow her to the door, and Rose says, she's in there. Like, obviously she's in there. We just saw her go in there.
Yeah. Rose does that a lot. There's another episode where someone knocks at the door or rings the doorbell, and Rose is going to get it, and Blanche walks into the living room and says, who's at the door? And Rose turns around and says, it's me, Blanche. Blanche says, on the other side, Rose. But yeah, I like her ditziness too. And that was a lot of this episode too. The whole conversation about Spanish Fly.
Oh my god.
I was rolling that entire time, and I've seen these episodes multiple times. That part always gets to me. B. Arthur, it's as if this conversation is actually taking place and she is pissed off. Brittany, it kind of reminds me of you when someone says a pun around you.
Yeah, I wish it weren't true, but I'm definitely Dorothy.
Did you hate the serial killer joke?
I did hate that. I would have told her she couldn't speak for the rest of the day, just like Dorothy did.
Yeah, I knew as soon as they said that line, and I knew that you were watching these episodes, I thought, I'm gonna have to hear about this one. Yeah, so my favorite part of this episode was actually the very beginning when they were talking about the minx and everything, and Rose, I mean, she's a bleeding heart, and a lot of that, I think, comes from Betty White in real life. She is a huge animal activist. She loves animals. Anybody who knows anything about Betty White knows this. And so I knew that she was probably having a hard time playing a character that was breeding these animals essentially to kill. And so she makes the comment, but do we really have to kill them? And Sophia says, no, Rose. Many women love wearing coats that urinate. And I just thought that was such a good one-liner. Sophia's full of those.
I also like the fact that Sophia only went with them to the psychiatrist's office because they were going to lunch afterwards.
Mm-hmm. That's realistic, too. That's my grandma.
That's me.
Yeah.
I really like how they brought it all together with the minks at the end. They're like, the vet comes, they're like, oh, the minks aren't breeding because they're too old, and then Blanche immediately starts coming on to the vet, and she's like, oh, that can happen, and he's like, yeah, but not in humans.
Yeah.
And then they leave.
Yeah, and like it was a B plot because they did talk about the minks outside of the main storyline, with the Spanish Fly conversation and everything, but at the end it became apparent why the minks were there in the first place.
Yeah.
They were just there to support basically that ending.
I like the story that Blanche told about getting her period when she kept saying, everybody said that I was going to get the curse when I turned 13, and I kept my lights on the entire year when I slept because I was afraid of the curse, and I never got the curse, and her mom takes her to the doctor, and the doctor's like, you haven't had your period yet? And she's like, oh, I've had my period, I just don't have the curse.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's some real good sex ed there in the South.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then I, for the life of me, cannot remember Rose's conversation about her sex ed, but her growing up on a farm, you get some of the funniest stories from her when it comes to sex, because literally everything that she knows about sex, they basically pointed at animals and said, that's it right there. So
I was actually watching an episode earlier today, and it was the one Blanche is trying to sleep with her boss at the museum, and Rose helps her by telling her about this possum that does like a mating dance and stuff.
that sounds like Rose.
I also liked the Rose story when Blanche thought she was pregnant and she didn't know who the father was, and she says, oh, we had a pig on our farm and nobody knew who the father was, and Dorothy's like, well, what did they do on Father's Day?
Yeah. I liked when they were talking about menopause and Dorothy was explaining to Blanche how she loved going through menopause, which I feel like I can kind of relate to Dorothy. I haven't gone through menopause, so I don't really want to assume, but she was like, you don't get your period every month, you don't have cramps, you don't PMS, and Rose is like, I don't know what any of that is, and Dorothy says, you never had PMS? And she says, no, I had a BMW. And then Sophia says, yeah, you don't have any of that stuff, you just grow a beard. Also, then Sophia goes into this elaborate story about this 72-year-old woman who got pregnant. I love her stories that are just completely off the wall.
Yeah, I love that too. It always ends with Dorothy going, Ma, you're making that up. They listen intently until the very end, and then they realize she's bullshitting them.
You know that she has fun with that.
Yeah.
I also like... So, we talked about the vet coming in and making the comment about humans don't lose their sex drive and everything, and then, of course, Blanche has to take him out on the lanai to look at this lizard that has been looking peckish or whatever. And Dorothy says, she could be in a coma. Put a man within 5 miles. She's rolling over and shaving her legs. So, yeah, and then the end of the episode comes around. They're talking about getting rid of the minks because they can't breed, and they basically end up keeping them because it's a metaphor for all of them. They're just going to get rid of them because they're old. No, they're not going to do that. And then they get all excited because they see 2 of them just going at it. And they're like, oh, you know, they're going to make a fur coat. And Dorothy says, don't count your money yet, girls. Those are the 2 males. So, all in all, I really liked this episode. I'm going to say that after every episode. I don't think there's a Golden Girls episode I don't like, except for the Empty Nest episode, because it wasn't Golden Girls. So, the next episode is titled, The Mangiacavallo Curse is a Lousy Wedding Present. It's from Season 5, Episode 23. In this episode, Dorothy's goddaughter is getting married to Sophia's ex through an arranged marriage. It's his grandson. He left town before the wedding happens, and Sophia cast a curse on him for humiliating her. They all end up going to the wedding. Dorothy's with a man off of Blanche's A-list, which Blanche hates. Rose gets horny at weddings, so the other 2 are keeping an eye on her. And Sophia is making sure that her curse is still intact, which it is. The evidence of this is one of the things that she cast on him is, may your socks always slouch. And he constantly pulls his socks up at this wedding, which I love. After a series of events, including Blanche and Dorothy fighting, Rose running off with their date, and Sophia having to call off the curse so that the marriage lasts, everyone makes up, and Rose ends up not cheating on her boyfriend. I think that my favorite part of this episode is, like I said, the may your socks always slouch. That is the best curse. Well, maybe the second best curse. We'll talk about the best one in the next episode. Because Brittany, you're right. You being Italian, you would know that that's the best curse.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of this episode. Kelly, what's yours?
I like the socks thing too, but it's just funny, like, watching that guy walk around, like, stopping to pull up his socks. Like, no one does that. You just deal with it and then go sit down somewhere and fix your socks.
I liked Sophia's grin after she sees that his socks are falling down.
So, the reason that Blanche being mad is completely ridiculous is because she begs Dorothy, please let me set you up with someone. And Dorothy says, no, I'm not letting you set me up with somebody because you always give me someone off of your B list. He's always just okay. And she says, no, I promise I'll get you someone great. Dorothy says, okay, I want Doug. So she's like, I'll get you anybody else but Doug. No, I want Doug. So Blanche agrees. But the whole wedding, she is irate that they're having a good time. And the reason I find this so ridiculous is because if you haven't seen the episode, you should see Doug.
He's just a generic old man. Like,
yeah. And I think that with the exception of Miles, that's kind of how they all are.
Yeah.
I can see where you would like Miles. He's pretty cute for an old guy, and he's an intellectual. which cracks me up that he's with Rose, but that's another point. But they're all just like balding old men.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think his name is Jerry Orbach. He was on Law and Order. He was on an episode where he was cheating with his wife, with Dorothy.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that he's the only other good-looking one, but I have a soft spot for him. You know, he was the dad in Dirty Dancing, and yeah, I love that. He was also the voice of Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But anyway, I just don't understand. I don't understand their love for Doug. He ends up being Doug the dog in the end and trying to sleep with Rose. And then he comes back and tries to get back with both Blanche and Dorothy. I do not see his appeal. He's not a good guy even. This isn't me being shallow. So, I don't know. I'll let it go. I'll move on. Brittany, I like your note about the family's last name.
Oh, yeah. When I very first watched this episode, I'm like, Mangiacavallo? That means eat horse. Like, that literally translates to eat horse. So I'm like, that can't be a real name. And, like, when you Google Mangiacavallo, it's all Golden Girls stuff. So I'm like, that's definitely not a real name. But then there was a website for, like, surnames in different parts of the world and stuff. And there are about 200 people with the surname Mangiacavallo. I'm like, that's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. See, I would not have even thought about that. I just thought, yeah, that sounds like an Italian name. Sure. So that is something we would not have known had we not asked you to do this podcast. The other thing that I love is, so Sophia goes to this guy during the wedding and explains to him why she cast a curse on him. He humiliated her. He left her standing there with no groom. Even though it was an arranged marriage, I would think she would be happy about it, but she was humiliated. And he explains to her, Sophia, it didn't have anything to do with you. I just wanted to get out of that village, and getting married to someone and having kids meant that my chances of getting out of the village were slim to none. And he goes on to compliment her, tell her how beautiful she used to be, and my favorite thing that he says to her is that she had legs for days. So I guess Dorothy had to get it from somewhere, because throughout the series you see Dorothy's father, and he's not much taller than Sophia. So I'm thinking maybe she really shrank.
I like how when they're talking about that they let Rose down because they weren't looking out for her, and Blanche says that Dorothy doesn't look out for her when she's hot, and Dorothy says that's because I have a day job.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Blanche in every single episode has to talk about her sex life at some point in her life, and half the time she zones out and forgets that someone's even in the room with her. One of the things that I love about Rose in this episode is when the waiter comes up to her with a tray and asks if she wants a cocktail wiener, and she oddly gets turned on by this. I was like, oh, Rose, you need help. She's the one who should have went to the therapist in the last episode. She's got some problems.
I mean, yeah, at the end, she flies to Miles because she just can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty extreme. That's a thirsty woman right there.
Oh my gosh.
So, the next episode we're going to talk about is Brittany's favorite. And it's titled The Sisters, Season 2, Episode 12. And the episode starts with Sophia sitting in the dark because she's depressed over her upcoming birthday and the lousy presents that Dorothy always gets her. Well, it turns out Dorothy has a surprise in store for her, which she actually trusts Rose with. That's rare because Rose is a blabbermouth. Sophia knows this and tries to trick Rose into telling her the entire episode. That's basically what this episode is. Sophia trying to trick Rose into telling her what the surprise is. Dorothy's surprise is that she's flown Sophia's sister in from Italy. They find out when the surprise is revealed that the two women hate each other. They later resolve everything after realizing that the entire argument was due to a case of mistaken identity and forgetfulness. The sisters are reunited, but Dorothy is still annoyed with both of them. So, Brittany, this was your favorite episode, so I'm going to let you start out on what you loved about this episode.
Well, I had a really hard time picking a favorite. I actually went through and watched several, but I settled on this one because it has my favorite line in the entire series, probably. My very favorite scene is when Dorothy drags Angela into Sophia's room and is trying to get them to work it out. And they start kind of talking to each other, but then they get angry and they start throwing curses at each other. And that exchange is just so funny. And Angela ends it with, "May your marinara sauce never cling to your pasta." And Sophia bites her fist and chases after her, and that is just the sickest burn.
Yep. Yep, that's why I said the "may your socks always slouch" second.
Yeah.
Worst curse.
Absolutely.
Second.
I just love episodes that revolve around Sophia, because she's just such a snarky little old woman, and I just love it.
Yep, for sure. Kelly, what did you like about this one?
I liked how similar the sisters were.
Yeah, I don't know where they found that woman, but that's good casting.
I don't know. And also, I like how Sophia was trying to trick Rose, which is not very hard to do. And she gets pretty close to telling her a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, and especially at the party, I thought that's when it was going to come out, when she was like, "Relax, Rose, Dorothy already told me."
Rose goes over to Dorothy and is like, "Dorothy, I didn't know you already told your mother about this." And Dorothy gives her a look like, "Seriously, Rose?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and Dorothy knew how close it was, too, because that's when she actually brings the sister out. One of the things that I like about this episode is her sister's name is Angela. And you hear, like, through the first few seasons about Aunt Angela, and she kind of comes back. And then all of a sudden, throughout the series, you stop hearing about Angela, but Dorothy's always talking about Uncle Angelo. And then there's this old man that comes, and he's Sophia's brother. And I guess I didn't realize that, but now I'm like, does she have a sister named Angela and a brother named Angelo? Or was it different writers and they just swapped the characters out?
yeah, I think that they swapped the characters. I think they mentioned that on an episode of Out on the Lanai.
Oh, yeah.
That they, like, just midway through, it's Angelo now. I don't know if they couldn't get that actress or what.
Yeah, speaking of which, if you guys like the Golden Girls, that's an excellent podcast to listen to. I also love the line when, after they have the argument and everything, they decide Angela's leaving, and Angela has all of her bags and she's walking out, and she just says real quick to Dorothy, "Thank you, Dorothy, I'd like to stay, but I hate your mother." So, the whole argument basically comes from Angela thinks that during a Christmas party one year, Sophia kissed her husband under the mistletoe, and that's complete betrayal. She cannot forgive her. Sophia remembers it as she was at a Christmas party. Some drunk came up behind her, was not Angela's husband, kissed her. Sophia was married at the time and didn't want anybody to know, but she confided in her sister, and her sister ran and told everybody. Well, as they're hashing it out, come to find out, the woman who kissed Angela's husband was not Sophia. She was wearing a dress that Sophia let this woman borrow, and Angela did not betray Sophia by telling this secret. There was someone drunk under the table, and Sophia should have remembered because he threw up in her shoes. And I just love this back and forth. My only confusion is, was this the same Christmas party? And what kind of party was this? I don't know if it was two separate parties or one party, but it sounded like there was a lot going on. Is this common in Italian parties, Brittany?
Oh, yeah. There's always a ton of people. I remember my cousin's wedding reception was out at my aunt and uncle's house. outside, and they had this huge tent, people everywhere. It was an open bar. It's insanity. So yeah, I can definitely see something like that happening.
I wouldn't know. I was raised in southeastern Ohio, and it's just a bunch of hicks.
Hey, they can get down too.
That's true.
I've been to some crazy hick parties.
That's true.
I think it's kind of sad though, because it was all misunderstanding and they've been mad at each other for years. So they've kind of missed out on a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that. I mean, they spent so much time apart that Sophia didn't realize that her sister wanted to be her brother and turn into a balding fat guy a couple seasons later.
Oh, I like the part, it's in the bedroom and they're trying to make them reconcile and they're trying to make small talk, and Sophia's like, you still got that cat? And Angela's like, the same cat I had 30 years ago?
Yeah. At least she was trying. But yes, I forgot about that line. That was one of the best lines. My favorite line was at the very end after they make up and Blanche says, oh, I think it's sweet. And Rose says, I think I'm going to cry. And Dorothy says, I think that they should both be committed. That makes me think, yeah, Brittany, you're right, you're Dorothy. For sure.
I definitely see myself and Sophia, and I guess Angela as well in this episode a little bit, because I will hold a grudge for the rest of my life. I probably wouldn't so much with family, like I give family a little slack, but if you wrong me on purpose, no, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. All in all, I think that this was a good episode. I agree, the Sophia-centric episodes are good. The episode where she meets the guy on the boardwalk who has Alzheimer's, that was
one of my contenders for my favorite episode, and then I watched it, and I'm sitting there crying about this old man. I'm like, this isn't my favorite, I'm crying.
Yeah.
I liked it because that's the episode where Rose's teddy bear gets accidentally given away, but then that little Girl Scout is kind of holding it for ransom, and then Rose ends up snatching it from her and pushing it out the door. Sometimes life just ain't fair, kiddo.
Yeah. It's a good lesson. But again, that goes back to those episodes where Rose is not quite herself.
Yeah.
Those are good ones. Just like the wedding curse episode. You are used to seeing poor little innocent Rose, and now she's being turned on by cocktail wieners.
Yep. That there was also, I actually wrote down a few just miscellaneous quotes. There was an episode, Rose was talking about reading like an abnormal psych magazine, and the girls of course don't believe her that she would read something intellectual like that, and Blanche says, I just refuse to believe it. And Rose says, believe what you want, see if I care, and gets up to leave the kitchen and mutters, hypersexual bitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Rose!
Yeah, I love that. We'll probably move on to some random facts about the show. I knew most of these going into it just because, like I said, I've watched this show since I was in junior high. Me and my best friend in junior high started watching this when they started doing reruns on Lifetime, and we just became completely obsessed. Rose reminds me of my Grandma Joy. She's just this sweet little old lady who is so naive. You can get her to believe anything. And I think that that's what drew me to it when I was younger. But as I get older, I have more of an appreciation for Dorothy and Sophia, but especially Blanche. And Kelly and I kind of talked about this. I think that it stems from when you're younger, you don't really get the jokes as much. But as you age, you're understanding the innuendos that Blanche uses.
Yeah.
But so, some of the random facts that I found was this show premiered at number 1 and was watched by 21.5 million households. And I thought that was interesting because they did have big names. B. Arthur was on Maude. Both Rue McClanahan and Betty White had done shows together and with B. Arthur, so you did have big names, but it just kind of surprises me that a show about 4 senior women really caught on right from the get-go. It wasn't, word of mouth. Someone watched it and said, oh, this show's actually pretty good. They immediately started tuning in.
I don't think Blanche would appreciate being called a senior woman.
Oh, well, that's true. She was supposed to be the younger one, but I don't know. What's the cutoff for senior? Because she always says she's like 42. We know that's not true.
Yeah, that's definitely not true. I think it's a pretty arbitrary cutoff, somewhere in the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, and they call it senior, but they're not really. I mean, I wouldn't, 'cause my mom is 53, and I would not consider her a senior.
Yeah.
But, so I use that term loosely. I'm sorry, Blanche. The original pilot had a butler who was supposed to stay on throughout the series, but Sophia actually tracked so well that they decided to swap those characters out. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have liked the butler. I think it was progressive because if I remember correctly, I think that he was supposed to be a gay character. But I can't imagine the show without Sophia.
Yeah, for sure.
Sophia's my favorite.
Yeah. So, Estelle Getty actually got the role of Sophia when she showed up to auditions dressed as a little old lady. And she brought the iconic purse with her. That's where the purse came from. The little wicker purse that she carries with her everywhere.
I have to give her props for that because I cannot keep my purse with me. I can't keep anything with me.
No, I can't either. I just bought a new purse in like November, and then now it's winter, so I'm just using my coat pockets for everything, and the purse sits at home.
Yeah. Brittany, I just want to point out that Kelly was giving her props for her props.
Oh my god.
So unlike her character, B. Arthur hated cheesecake. I love cheesecake.
I do too.
I like cheesecake that involves chocolate. I don't like cheesecake that involves fruit.
Gotcha. I knew we had a conversation once about you not liking cheesecake. That makes sense.
And I don't like plain, like, oh, this is just cheesecake. That's disgusting.
Oh, I could eat it.
I don't think I've met a dessert that I don't like.
One of the things that I loved about Estelle Getty was she refused to do any jokes that could be interpreted as gay bashing because she had a lot of friends and associates in the LGBT community, and she also had horrible stage fright.
I think she was on the episode where Blanche's brother comes out as gay. I think that Sophia was like one of the voices of reason with Blanche, like, listen, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I also, that episode has one of my favorite lines too, because I remember Dorothy laying in bed with her, and I don't know if it was that one or the one where Dorothy's lesbian friend shows up, but she asks her mom, Mom, what if I told you that I was gay? And she said, you know what, Dorothy, if you told me that you were gay, I wouldn't love you one bit less. Now shut up and go to bed. One of the things that Brittany and I actually spoke about before we started recording was both of us throughout watching this never realized that there were only 3 chairs sitting at the table at any given time. And I guess this was for filming purposes, and they always sat B. Arthur in the center chair because she had the classic facial expressions. And the other 3, they just rotated out. And looking back, I remember a lot of times Sophia sitting at like the island on a stool.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I just never noticed that. One of the things I loved was Estelle Getty was actually 1 year younger than her on-screen daughter. She was a beautiful woman. They made her look old, and I didn't think that makeup was that great back then, but apparently it was.
Yeah. I know she was able, I didn't even know that until, like, she plays herself in her flashbacks, and they just have her be, like, her regular self. And I'm like, oh my god, she's not that old.
She has, like, flaming red hair, and...
Yeah.
Yeah. Rue McClanahan had a clause in her contract that allowed her to keep all of her on-screen clothes. I think that that's awesome. I actually liked a lot of Blanche clothes in that series.
Blanche was definitely the best dress. I do love a lot of Rose's clothes, though. Like,
Yeah.
Rose always has little bears on her. She's a little bear vest, and she has that one, I don't know if it's a vest or a sweater with, like, an airplane on it she wears in, like, several episodes, and her clothes are just so cute.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, B. Arthur hated her wardrobe in that show, though.
I don't blame her. It was, like, sacks. Like, she just wore big, big person-shaped sacks of cloth. Like,
yeah,
I
like,
notice that all the time.
Straight down to the floor. No curves
like,
or anything.
She's so tall. Like, it makes her look, like, even, like, larger because her clothes are, like, down to her knees, and it just accentuates her tallness. Maybe they were trying to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering, because Sophia was supposed to be so small, and I think that was kind of a running joke, you know, how can this little woman be Dorothy's mother? And in one of the episodes you actually see that there's a maternity test going on because they think that they were switched at birth.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite ones that I did not know. So B. Arthur once called a housewife who said that Dorothy wasn't interesting in a TV Guide interview. So she called her up and she said, "This is B. Arthur, and I want to talk to you about what you said in TV Guide."
Oh, the days before Twitter. Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. She was like, "No, I'm calling this bitch out." But apparently the woman told her that she was misquoted. Whether that's true or she was afraid of B. Arthur, which I would be.
I would be too.
Yeah. Some of the most famous Golden Girl fans were the Queen, Princess Diana, and Freddie Mercury, which I am obsessed with Freddie Mercury, so that made me extremely happy. And it says, once Princess Diana and Freddie spent an entire afternoon watching reruns while drunk on champagne and giving the show much naughtier dialogue.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall there.
Yeah, that also sounds like a lot of fun. I might try that sometime. All four women won Emmys for their roles, and Betty White is the only living Golden Girl. Estelle Getty died in 2008 at 84 from dementia. B. Arthur died in 2009 at 86 from cancer. And Rue McClanahan died in 2010 at 76 from a stroke. And I want to say, Betty, please keep on kicking. Because I will be a mess. She truly is the Golden Girl of America.
You know, there was I've seen it posted online. There was an episode of the show where they're talking about how they're going to be friends forever and always be together and stuff. And then, of course, it's Rose who says, "Well, what if when there's only one of us left?"
Yeah.
And then someone like puts that adjacent to a picture where it has like B. Arthur and Estelle Getty and Rue McClanahan fade away, and it's just Betty White. And I'm like, that is rude.
Yeah, that episode actually made me bawl, and then 5 seconds later, Sophia says, "Oh, I'll be okay." And then I started laughing, so at least it turns around pretty quick. Yeah, those are all of the random facts that I have. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
Oh, can you tell the fact about your birth?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. So I am so obsessed with this show, you guys, that while I was giving birth, as I was pushing, the Golden Girls were playing on the television throughout my entire labor. I think it started on Hallmark Channel, and then as the day progressed, it was on Logo, and I just kept flipping the channels, and Golden Girls was on some channel, so that's what I watched the entire, my entire birthing experience was Dorothy being mean to Rose, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I I'm going to tell him that. He's going to know that growing up. He's going to have an appreciation for that show.
You should have given him, like, another middle name from one of the characters.
I should have. But they're all women.
Angelo.
Yeah.
Angelo, yeah, that's true. It could have been like Reed Spornak something or other. I love that last name, Spornak.
I do too. Just throw Stan in there. We didn't talk about Stan at all. None of these episodes had Stan.
Well, that maybe that's by design.
Maybe.
No, I do like Stan. I think that, you know, it's nice to see a divorced couple. They hate each other, they love each other, they're always there for each other. So that's nice because really they don't even have to be there for the kids that much.
Right. I was really upset when they were going to get married again and he like completely messed it up by asking for a prenup. I was so pissed at him. I'm like, Stan, you had it in the bag.
Yeah. Well, and then there's one episode where they're kind of getting back together, I don't know, and his attractive new wife or whatever shows up and she's wanting to make up with him and he kicks her out. And I was like, good for you, Stan, because he's kind of a dog. You expected him to be like, oh, sorry, Dorothy, and walk out with this new wife, and he doesn't do that. It's not until Dorothy tells him, I'm not taking you back, that he runs after her.
It's funny that you call him a dog because I remember one of my favorite Dorothy quotes is, I don't remember the context, but Stan is there at their house and staying there for some reason, and he goes to crawl in the bed with her, and she kicks him out of the bed, and he's like, where am I supposed to sleep? And she says, without missing a beat, on the floor like any dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I like Stan, but he's only there when absolutely necessary. And that's not too often.
Yeah.
So we're going to end this episode with listener comments, and Kelly's going to take over this portion.
Okay, let's start with the comments from Facebook. So Chris Hall says, I started watching this with my grandma growing up. I've always loved it. I can't really think of a favorite episode. I like all of the main characters, but if I had to pick favorites, I would say Rose because of her humor she brings with her cluelessness, and Sophia for the humor she brings with being so blunt and to the point, no filter. Lauren H. Logan says, I love this show, fave episodes, when everyone has the flu, the high school reunion they crash, Rose gets the scoop at a cat show instead of burglary, impactful episodes when they have to test Rose for HIV because she had a blood transfusion, the one where Dorothy is sick and the doctor doesn't care or listen to her, when Blanche has to fend off a predatory professor. Rose is my favorite character. She's so kind and loving and a goofball. She also says she started watching it in undergrad when she randomly saw it on TV while getting ready for class. Decided to make Golden Girls my morning show as I got ready that quarter, and I've loved it ever since. Other morning shows of undergrad included Frasier and Saved by the Bell. Those
Saved
are
by
also
the Bell.
good shows.
Yeah, I forgot about Saved by the Bell. We might have to look into doing one.
Add that to our list.
Yep.
Taylor Ray Paul says, I started watching Golden Girls when Hallmark Channel brought it back. That was back when I was still in high school. I have 3 favorite episodes I can think of off the top of my head. Sick and Tired, Part 1 and 2, Job Search, and The Curse. I believe that is the name of the episodes. They are all so good. And then on Twitter, Ann and Tom at ManioFay says her favorite Golden Girl, or I don't know if it's a her. My favorite Golden Girl episode is the Mangiacavello. Sorry, Brittany D. I can't say that. The Falling Down Socks is fabulous. Dorothy is my favorite character. TV Tangents at TV Tangents Pod says Rose is her favorite because she can get away with anything by playing dumb. A Non-Mom Happy Hour podcast says Dorothy is their favorite character because of snark factor, or Sophia. I want to be Sophia when I grow up.
We all
I
do.
agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah, I either want to be Sophia or Grandma Joy. Never Ending Jewelry Party says, I love Rose, but it's not just that she's dumb. It's this complete and totally sincere, naive innocence. I'm not sure I've ever met anyone remotely close to a Rose.
Well, she should meet Grandma Joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I will share some stories with you all towards the end of the season. So, I lied. We're actually going to end this episode with Brittany.
Yeah?
Which Golden Girl would you be?
Oh, Dorothy, of course. Sophia, when I'm that age, I'll be Sophia. Definitely. When I'm so old, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna be a snarky little bitch.
Kelly, which Golden Girl would you be?
I would say a Rose. I'm not really that stupid, but I do say some dumb things sometimes.
Yeah, you are not dumb by any means, but
It's mostly lack of sleep.
yeah. I can't remember what happened yesterday that I made a joke and you were like, "What? Why?"
Oh yeah, it was about somebody being my best friend.
Oh yeah, and I said, "Do I have to beat him up?" And she was like, "No, seriously, he's nice to me." And I said, "I know. Do I need to beat him up?" I think I would probably be a Dorothy too, although I've also been told that I'm a Blanche and I don't see that at all.
I don't see that either.
No. I'm not very conceited. And I don't think I'm a slut. I mean, I'm married. Alright, guys. Well, thanks for sticking with us. This ran a little bit over what we planned because this is one of our favorite shows. It's hard to limit it within a certain time frame. I could go on and on and on about this show. But we will be back in about 2 weeks. We will be talking about The Office.
That's what she said.
And we will keep you updated on Twitter. You can follow us there and at Facebook at the Faves of Our L1. That's at the Faves of Our L and the number 1. So you can talk to us about the upcoming shows that we're doing. You can talk to us about episodes that we've done. Give us feedback, what you like, what you don't like. And we will see you all soon. Thanks for
Bye.
listening. Bye.
Bye.